The numbers are stark, the reality is grim. A record number of people are experiencing homelessness in and around Metro Vancouver.
Canada's food banks are busier than ever, some even turning people away.
I see lots of people going there, sometimes you think some people might need it more than you do, so you don't bother.
In the great land of Canada, a nation celebrated for its vast landscapes and rich opportunities, there exists a notion that troubles the spirit, an adversary that tests the mettle of ordinary citizens. This adversary is known by a simple word: poverty. Though a term now frequently spoken of in the Canadian setting, its impact is felt far more profoundly than its mere utterance.
It's hardly able to make ends meet with the price of food.
Is Terry Smith-Fraser, a full-time continuing care assistant who is currently living in her van after she was forced out of her apartment because the cost of rent climbed.
This is just the tip of the iceberg as the crisis is even more severe. In today's video, we'll talk about the back-breaking poverty that looms large over the Canadian horizon. Poverty in Canada, like in many other countries, is generally defined as a situation in which individuals or families do not have access to the financial and material resources necessary to meet their basic needs and enjoy a decent standard of living. Well, by this definition, it appears that many, unfortunately, in the country are living on the edge. In the true north, it is reported that a staggering 1 in every 5 single adults grapples with poverty.
With the cost of food, housing, and nearly all essentials on the rise, food banks are becoming increasingly vital for families struggling to make ends meet.
Imagine the weight of that burden, the relentless struggle that the Canadians have to suffer daily. Imagine the brunt of this hardship is felt most acutely by those of working age, who bear the deepest scars from this tough battle. Astonishingly, a substantial 22% of them live below Canada's unforgiving poverty line. For these Canadians, their average income paints a grim picture: a mere $12,000, a sum less than half of the $25,000 considered to be the bare minimum for a single adult household to tread just above the low-income living. The reasons for these challenges are, quite understandably, the continuous rise in prices, which has made the simple act of affording healthy food increasingly hard.
If it feels like you spent more this summer than last year, you're probably right. While rising costs are not new for Canadian consumers, inflation numbers for August show prices were even higher than economists expected.
A Canadian from the province of Ontario revealed the difficulties she encountered in her pursuit of maintaining a healthy diet while relying on social assistance. She mentioned her situation, stating that she found herself in a position where she relied on disability assistance. Sadly, her food choices were severely limited, and she expressed that the desire for good nutrition was noble. Another member also discussed the emotional turmoil experienced during routine trips to the grocery store. She mentioned having to remove individual bananas from the conveyor belt, not because of preference, but due to genuine doubts about affording them. She acknowledged the clear embarrassment in such situations and shared that it was a daily struggle not to cry at the checkout counter as she grappled with the realization of lacking the means to buy a bunch of bananas. To make these difficulties worse, gasoline prices have shown a continuous upward trend, increasing by a worrying 7.5% at the national level in September. As a result, the situation faced by many Canadians is defined by the haunting question: where am I going to get my next meal? This troubling question captures the very essence of their struggle. Another big reason for many Canadians struggling with the poverty in Canada is the housing crisis. When you're making a low income, something as basic as having a place to live becomes a real challenge. Canadians who are trying to make ends meet have to pay a big chunk of their income just to keep a roof over their heads. One Canadian Manitoba straightforwardly says, "Our pay hasn't gone up much, but rent sure has." According to the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, Canada has the priciest housing market among the G7 countries. Finding a place to rent is becoming harder because there are very few vacant places, and the Royal Bank of Canada predicts that by 2026, there could be over 120,000 more people looking for rentals than there are available, 4 times more than today. The housing and poverty crisis in Canada, from a regular person's perspective, is like a never-ending cycle that's got Canadians trapped. You work hard, but it feels like no matter what you do, you just can't get ahead because of the sky-high cost of housing. Well, it's a basic human need to have a roof over your head, but for so many in the country, that's becoming harder and harder to achieve. The dream of owning a place is slipping away for many. But you can't discuss the issue without shining a light on the outdated social safety net, which is yet another cause for the rising poverty levels. When people are out of work, struggling to make ends meet, or unable to work, they have no choice but to turn to government programs for help. While Canada's social safety net has been a source of national pride, the help it offers nowadays falls short of what people need to cover their basic expenses. The current provincial and federal programs like employment assurance and the Canada Workers Benefit are inadequate to incentivize people to actively participate in the labor market. Government support programs don't even come close to matching the actual cost of living. What's even worse is that most of these programs don't keep up with inflation, making the situation even more challenging each year. For example, if social assistance in Ontario for a single adult had been adjusted for inflation since the mid-1990s, the monthly benefit in 2021 would have been $1,030, compared to the current monthly rate of $733. It seems that Canadians are silently suffering with no one to help them. Immigration is cited as another reason for the increasing levels of poverty. Some argue that immigrants take jobs that could otherwise go to local residents. Since Justin Trudeau took office in 2015, immigration has already risen from around 300,000 to 400,000 new residents per year. Canada now plans to welcome 500,000 permanent residents annually by 2025. Concerns arise because as newcomers arrive and the population dynamics change, this can lead to rising prices and place additional strain on healthcare, overwhelming the system. Critics argue that the common Canadian is suffering at the expense of these newcomers. While Canada is still grappling with the challenges posed by this immigration influx, changes in the labor market are further complicating the crisis. Employment no longer provides the stability it once did for many Canadian workers. Non-standard work, including self-employment, temporary contracts, part-time jobs, or holding multiple jobs, has become the norm, especially in low-wage sectors of the economy. From 1997 to 2015, non-standard work grew at twice the rate of standard work. This shift has resulted in insufficient hours, reduced job security, fewer benefits, limited pensions, and irregular pay. As one community member lamented, "I don't have regular hours or regular days or a regular paycheck." Just picture the pain of poverty, racism, and discrimination that so many poor people in Canada face. Being homeless in Canada is incredibly tough, with lots of struggles and difficulties. People who are homeless in Canada go through different living conditions, but most of them don't have a proper place to stay. They end up sleeping on the streets, in parks, or in public spaces. They also have a hard time getting basic things like clean water, bathrooms, and food. Some of them rely on shelters and places that provide food. But that's not where their problems end.
Missy Silas says she's been subletting from a friend for a year and a half, but the landlord said that was not allowed. So her room was boarded up, her belongings still inside.
Homeless people in Canada also have health issues and mental health problems. They don't have easy access to health care or other support. They're at risk of violence, being mistreated, and being treated unfairly. It's like they're pushed to the sidelines in society, and it makes their already tough situation even harder. This is a dystopian horror for Canada. Poverty seems to be written in their destiny for now, and nobody seems willing to change this fate. Back-breaking inflation, a household bubble, and the immigration Ponzi are some of the reasons for the rising poverty levels. It's time for action, otherwise the stigma of being poor might further increase in Canadian society. If you like this video and want to learn more about poverty in Canada, check out this video, The Unsustainable Rental Crisis Spreading Across Canada. And if this video brought value to you, please consider liking and subscribing. Thanks for watching.